Hello friends, in previous video we discussed about the direct online starter. Now in this video let us discuss about the star delta starter. So direct online starter is used for the three-phase induction motor which is rated below 5 HP, and star delta starter will be generally preferred for motors which is having a rating of above 5 HP. Right, if you observe the three-phase induction motors which are available in the market, so there will be two types of motors are there. Okay, so in one type all the three terminals will be given outside the so in one type of induction motor, all the 6 phases. So you know that three-phase induction motor which is having 3 windings. So each winding will have 2 terminals, right? So 3 phases, total 6 terminals will be there, right? If in some of the induction motor, all the 6 terminals will be given outside. Okay, so in some of the induction motors, only 3 terminals are given outside. Okay, the remaining 3 terminals will be internally connected either in star or delta. Okay, so this star delta starter will be used only when the induction motor all the 6 terminals are outside. Okay, if your induction motor is having only 3 terminals outside, so then you cannot go for star delta starter. So you must have to use the DYL starter only. Okay, so if the three-phase induction motor is having all the 6 terminals outside, so then only you can go for the star delta starter. Right. So as I said, for the three-phase induction motor, all the 6 terminals will be given outside. So the terminal names will be represented like this: U1, V1, W1, U2, V2, W2, like this. Okay. So U1, V1, W1, U2, V2, W2. Right. So U1, U2 is the one winding terminals. Each winding will be having 2 terminals now. Right. One terminal is U1, another terminal is U2. So like that, V1, V2 is one winding, W1, W2 is another winding. Okay. So now if U1 is connected to W2, W1 is connected to V2, V1 is connected to U2. So then this type of winding is called the delta winding. Okay. See here in this picture. So W2 is connected to U1, U2 is connected to V1, V2 is connected to W1 through the jumper bars. Okay, so if all the jumper bars are connected in parallel, so you can say that the windings inside the motor are connected in delta. Okay, suppose if W2, U2, V2, so these are connected together, and the U1, V1, W1, these are taken outside. So then this type of winding is called the star connection or Y connection. Okay, so here the jumper bars are placed in series. 2 jumper bars will be connected like this. Okay, so this winding is the star winding or delta winding. So that means, so in star delta starter, first whenever you switch on the motor has to run in star. Then after some period of time, star will be disconnected and Y has to on. That means all these terminals, these 6 terminals, initially they have to connect in star. Then after some period of time, the motor has been take up a speed of about 70% of rated speed. They have to connect in delta connection. Okay. For this purpose, also we will use the three-phase 4-pole contactor. So this is the picture of three-phase 4-pole contactor. It will be having 4 poles and one coil inside. So whenever this coil gets the 120 or 220 volts AC, then these all 4 poles will be closed. Okay, this is the operation of the contactor. Okay, so this coil supply will be supply will depend upon the manufacturer. Some manufacturer will give the winding or coil voltage as 120 volts AC, 120 volts AC. In some of the manufacturers, they will give the 220 volts AC, or even they may be 24 volts DC also. Okay, so first you have to observe the uh, specification sheet of contactor. Then you have to decide what is the voltage rating of your coil, so that that particular voltage only you have to apply. See here, for this star delta starter, you need three contactors. Okay, so in here like this, you have to require or you have to get three contactors for designing a star delta starter. Okay, so those three contactors will be named as main contactor, delta contactor, and star contactor. Okay, and as I said before, the three-phase induction motor, all the 6 terminals will be given outside uh, for star delta starter. Okay, you see here U1, V1, W1 is one side of the three phase, and U2, W2, VT is another side. Okay, all the 6 terminals are given outside, right? So now if you want to connect these windings in star connection, then you have to connect W2, U2, V2 together, and U1, V1, W1 will be given to the supply. Okay, so if you want to connect the windings, all the three phase windings in delta, so then this W2 to be connected to U1, U2 to be connected to V1, V2 to be connected to W1, and you have to take out the L1, L2, L3 to supply. Okay, so this is how you can connect the windings of the motor in star or delta. Okay, so depending upon these connection, you have to give the wiring here. Okay, so this is the three phase supply R by B. Okay, here you are having the thermal overload relay, right? Depending upon the current flowing through this, so this the current flowing through this, there will be some temperature. Depending upon the temperature, this relay may open if there is a overload on the motor. Okay, you left this thermal overload relay, it may or may not present, right? So now this R by B supply will be first given to main contactor one side terminals. Okay, so your contactor will be having 4 poles. So one side you will connect the supply, another side it will be given to the U1, V1, W1. Okay, so now if you want to use the star delta starter, right? Whenever you press the start button, the motor has to connect in star first. Initially star connection has to be done, then after some period of time it has to be connected in delta, right? For this purpose you have to use the star contactor. So this is your star contactor. Okay, so now up from the supply we are connecting the one contactor, main contactor. One side terminals are connected to RYB supply, and other side will be connected to U1, V1, W1 of the motor. So now W2, V2, U2. So these are connected to star contactor one side. See here, W2 is connected to this, U2 is connected to this, V2 is connected to this, and other side will be connected like this. So they are short circuited. Okay, so now whenever this contactor and this contactor both are closed, okay, whenever main contactor and star contactor both are closed at a time, so then what happens, this R by B supply will be connected to the motor and the windings will be connected in star. Okay, whenever you press the start button, first main contactor and the star contactor has to energize, right? So that the motor is connected in star. Now whenever the motor is connected in start, the windings will get low voltage supply and they will start running. Once the motor pick up the speed which is of 70% of its rated speed, then you have to close the delta contactor by opening the star contactor. Okay, so then your motor will be connected in delta and it will be continuously running in delta connection only. Okay, so to connect them in delta, so to connect the motor windings in delta, here W2, U2, V2. So here W2, U2, V2 are connected to, W2 is connected to U1, U2 is connected to V1, V2 has to connect to W1. So these will be connected through the contactor, delta contactor. So W2, U2, V2. So these are connected to one side of the delta contactor. Other side of the delta contactor is connected to U1, V1, W1 through this main contactor. Okay, so right, W2 is connected to this U1. See here, W2 is connected to V1. Then U2 is connected to V1. U2 is connected to V1. Similarly, V2 is connected to W1. Right? So like this, you have to give the wiring. Right? Whenever this delta contactor is closed, then the windings are connected in delta. Okay. So this is how a star delta starter will work. Let us now implement the star delta starter with the PLC. Okay. So in star delta starter, mainly we are going to use the 3 contactors. Each contactor will have one coil like this. Okay. So each contactor will have 4 poles and 1 coil. Whenever this coil is energized, then only these all poles will close. Out of all these 4 poles, we are going to use only 3 poles for the motor, and another pole will be left it as open, or it is not used. Okay. So like this, as we are using 3 contactors, you will be having 3 coils. Okay. Each contactor will have 1 coil. Okay, so those coils will be connected to output terminals of your PLC through 220 volt supply. Okay, see here, this is main contactor coil. So this is the main contactor. So the main contactor coil is connected to Y0. Then star contactor, this is the star contactor. So this star contactor coil is connected to Y1, and delta contactor coil is connected to Y2. Okay, so now whenever Y0 is on, so this phase will be connected to Y0, so that this winding will get the 220 volts AC supply. Okay, whenever Y0 is on, 220 volts supply will be connected to this winding, main winding, right? So then this contactor will close. Similarly, whenever Y1 is on, this contactor, the star contactor coil will get the supply. Then this star contactor, all the terminals or all the poles will close. So in the same fashion, so whenever Y2 is on, the delta contactor coil will get the power supply. So whenever delta coil is getting the supply, this delta contactor will close. Okay, this is how the operation will be done. Okay, see here, for the star delta starter to work, what is the procedure? Okay, so now here we are going to use 2 push buttons, which are normally open push buttons. Whenever you press the on push button, okay, you are going to use 2 push buttons, out of which one is used for on, another is for off, or you can say them as start stop, like that also you can say. See here, so this on button is connected to X0 and the off button is connected to X1, right? So whenever X0, whenever you press the on push button, this X0 will get the 24 volt supply, so that this X0 is energized. Okay, So X0 is energized in the sense your push button, on push button is pressed. Okay. So X1 is energized in the sense off button is pressed. Right. So depending upon these input values, you have to write the program such that these coils will work. Right. So what actually has to be done. So whenever you press the on button, then this main contactor and star contactor both has to on. Okay, whenever you press the on button, main contactor and star contactor both has to be on, so that the motor will be connected in star initially, and the motor will get the supply and it will run at low voltage. So once the motor is running and it picks up the speed of 70% of rated speed, so then you can switch off the star contactor and switch on the delta contactor. Okay, so then finally the motor will be running in delta connection only. Okay, so for this starter, let us write the PLC program. So you take a new file. So program title is your this. We are going to write the ladder program. See here. So whenever I press the on button is connected to X0, so X0 will be energized. Right? Whenever X0 is energized, what has to be done? This main contactor and star contactor has to on instantly. Right? So when these main and star contactor will be on, so whenever you will get these coils, main contactor coil and star contactor coil. So if these two are on, then only these two will get on, right? Okay, so Y0 and Y1 both has to be on whenever you press the on button. Okay, whenever you press the on button, Y0 has to on. At the same time, Y1 also should on. Okay, see here, whenever X0 is energized, Y0 and Y1 both will on. Now after some period of time, so after some period of time, okay, 20 seconds, let us say 20 seconds. After some period of time, you have to disconnect the del star and you have to connect the delta. Okay, after some period of time, these windings to be changed from star to delta. Right? How it will be done? The star contactor has to open and delta contactor has to close. So that means after some period of time, this star contactor has to open and this contactor has to close. So this some period, as I said, some period of time I said. So you have to measure some period of time in PLC program also. So that means you have to use the timer here. So whenever you press the X0, so Y0 has to on, at the same time Y1 also should on. Along with that, your timer also should on. So here you have to use one timer. So regarding the timer, I also made one video. You go through it. Here I am keeping K100 and I am taking T0 as a timer number. T0 is a 100 milliseconds timer. So if K100 is the step numbers, so 100 into 100, 10,000 milliseconds. 10,000 milliseconds into 10 seconds. Okay, so 10 seconds time I am giving for the contactor to change from star to delta, or you can keep it as 20 seconds. Okay, the time is your issue. Okay, whenever you press X0, Y0 and Y1 both will on, so that main contactor and star contactor will be closed and the motor will start in star. Right, at the same time the timer also will on. Okay, so this timer is also on. and it will start counting the time. So whenever time reaches to 20 seconds, so then T0 will be energized. That means whenever T0 is energized, this Y1, which is a star contactor, has to close, open. So that means Y1 has to off. For that purpose, here you will place the normally closed button with the address T0. Okay. So whenever T0 reaches the 20 seconds, this Y1 will get the Y1 will be disconnected. Okay, Y1 has to. That Y1 is, what is Y1? This is the star contactor coil. Okay, so Y1 is connected with the star contactor coil. So you have to de-energize the star contactor coil so that star contactor coil will be open, right? So then along with that, you have to close the delta contactor, which is Y2. Sorry. Delta contactor is Y2 only. That is connected, not here. Y2. Okay. So Y1 will, whenever time reaches to 20 seconds, Y1 will off and Y2 will on. But here what you have to understand is this contactor is a mechanical device, right? So it will be having one plunger which will be pushed to open this contactor. Okay. The operation will require some fraction of second, right? So before, suppose if star contactor is not fully closed and delta contactor is on at the same time, then what happens? There is a dead short circuit to the winding. Okay, when star and delta both are on at a time, okay, at the same time. So you are opening the star, okay. So but when it is not completely open, before that itself, if delta contactor is closed, so then a short circuit will exist here. So the motor may damage if there is no protective device. So because of that reason, to completely open this star contactor, you have to provide some minimum amount of time, 2 seconds or 1 second time you have to give. Okay, after that you have to close the delta contactor. So for that purpose, instead of switching on Y2 instantly after 20 seconds is raised, you have to use another timer. T1 with the 1 or 2 seconds. Let us say 2 seconds. 2 seconds in the sense here you have to keep 20. Okay, I'm keeping 20 as T1 is 100 milliseconds timer. 100 into 20, 2000 milliseconds. So 2 seconds. Wait. Then after 2 seconds, your delta contactor has to close. So after T1 energized, you have to give the supply to delta coil. This is the star delta starter. Okay. See here, whenever I press the on push button, X0 will be energized. Right? Whenever X0 is energized, whenever X0 is energized, Y0 and Y1 will both on. Okay. So now the motor will be connected in star and it will be running. Now after 20 seconds, so you see here I kept the time 20 seconds. After 20 seconds, T0 will be energized and this T0 will off this and you wait for 2 seconds. Then after 2 seconds Y2 will come. So that means delta contactor will close. So now the motor will be running in delta. Okay. So now here the push buttons are normally open and these are the not maintained push buttons. These are momentary push buttons. Whenever you press it, it will on. If you release your finger, it will off. Right? But if you use such a type of push buttons, you have to provide the latching for this. Right? So latching will be done like this. Parallel to this, you have to connect one contactor with address Y0. Okay. So whenever X0 is on, these Y0 and Y1 will on. Right? As Y0 is on, this will also on. So now even though if X0 is off, through Y0 you will get the supply, so that Y0 will be continuously on. Okay. One second. Here even though X0 is off, Y0 Y1 will be in on position only, and the timer is also in on position, and whenever the timer reaches to 20 seconds, Y1 will off, right, and it will wait for 2 seconds and then Y2 is on. Okay, this is how star delta starter will on. Now if you want to off the motor, what you have to do, you have to press the off button, right? Off button is connected to X1, right? Whenever you press the off button, X1 will be energized, right? That X1 has to switch off these two along with these two also. Okay, so here you have to connect one normally closed button with address X1, right? Whenever X1 is pressed, this will disconnect the Y0. So as Y0 is disconnected, this timer and timer also will be de-energized, right? When this de-energized, this timer also de-energized. When this is de-energized, Y2 also de-energized. Okay, motor will get off. See how. Right. Now I'm pressing the on button. Y0 Y1 will on. Even though if it is released, it will be in on position only, and the motor will be running in star connection. After 20 seconds, this Y1 will off, and to completely open the contactor, it will wait for 2 seconds, then Y2 will on. Okay, now the motor will be running in delta, right? So the motor will continuously will be running or doing the operation in delta connection only. Now if you want to switch off the motor, you have to press the stop button, so that whenever stop button is pressed, X1 will on. As X1 is normally open here, it will normally closed here, it will open, so that Y0 will be disconnected. So whenever Y0 is disconnected, all the timers will set to 0 and Y2 will also will off. Now even though if it is off, these will not be affected, so the motor will be in off position only. This is how you can implement the star delta starter with the PLC. Right, I think you understood it well. If you are having any doubt, you put the comment in the comment box. I will reply to you. Thank you.